Hi again. We're in part 3 of Harold Bloom's discussion of Jehovah's Witnesses in his great book, which I strongly recommend to all of you who want an outside-the-box interpretation of American religion, entitled The American Religion, The Emergence of the Post-Christian Nation, published in 1992. This is part 3 of his discussion, and we've just been dealing with the chronology, which has been, of course, the core of witness belief about the last days from the beginning, and has already had many adjustments, but has been relatively stable now since J.F. Rutherford took over the organization. He's talking here about Daniel chapter 9, the 70 weeks. He says Daniel 9:24 is a proclamation by the angel Gabriel to the effect that 70 weeks will suffice to restore Jerusalem. In witness lore, the 70 weeks extend from 455 BC through AD 36, which is 481 years. Actually, it's 491 years. Bloom is not as good at math, apparently, as he is at literary criticism. A number not easily divisible by 7, he adds, but no one, including the major theocrats of the Watchtower Society, ever fully understands the witnesses' chronology. Chronology has followed chronology and will be followed by more. It is not the dates or even the patterns of chronology that seem to matter, but rather the idea of chronology itself. Definite numbers are an amazing comfort to millenarians. They convey the illusions of power and of knowledge and seem to provide a shield against reality. No other sect has so abounded in the mystical mathematics of the city of heaven, or has so gratified the American appetite for supposed fact. That there are no immutable dates, or even unchanging doctrines, does not seem to bother the majority of witnesses. There is something not unimaginative, even if a touch zany, about the movement's capacity for absorbing changes in doctrine. One might think that the resurrection of the dead would be a crucial enough event so that some clear expectation could be fostered, but no one would ever pass an examination question that said, "Give me a historical account of Jehovah's Witnesses in regard to the resurrection of the dead." Russell held that the 144,000 elect would be resurrected in heaven to immortality from 1878 on, a date now shifted to 1918. As for the great crowd of Jonadabs, Russell added that they would also be resurrected, but at a secondary time. Then at last, everyone else would come back to life during the millennium, particularly the ancient worthies of the Old and New Testaments. But in the boisterous years of the American 20s, Rutherford had second thoughts and began to resurrect the worthies even ahead of the saintly 144,000. In the mid-30s, a darker time, Rutherford denied that even the ancient men of faith, let alone dying sinners, would ever return. Only saints and Jonadabs could live again. In 1950, a subsequent theocrat, Franz, in his broodings upon Armageddon, decided that the pious of old could be resurrected once the great battle had been fought. When the 1960s brought on the counterculture, the movement reacted by giving preference to ancient sinners over contemporary ones. Those who died in Sodom would be resurrected, but all American clergymen were consigned forever to Gehenna. The manifest permanence of Jehovah's Witnesses as a movement opens again one of this book's incessant concerns. What truths about America and Americans give rise to such extraordinary sects? And what is it that sustains, here and abroad, so inhumane a vision as that of Russell, Rutherford, and their heirs? The supreme fact about Jehovah's Witnesses is that it sets itself against the American religion by laboring to widen immensely the distance between the heaven-dwelling theocrat of theocrats, Jehovah, and his American subjects. The God of Joseph Smith and Brigham Young was an exalted man, self-elevated into heaven, while Mrs. Eddy, that is the founder of Christian Science, shared so deeply in the divine mind that she had but to read her own will in order to read God's. Southern Baptists experience a mystical solitude, alone in the garden with Jesus, while Pentecostals can be wholly seized by the descending Paraclete. Seventh-day Adventists, like Shakers before them, share in the ecstasies of women who bordered upon being female Christs. And nearly all American fundamentalists have intimations of divinity through their experience of the second birth. Only the witnesses dissent and continue in the dreadfully modest hope that they may yet be regarded as faithful and discreet slaves of a Jehovah altogether intoxicated with his own majesty. As a public, we think of the witnesses with some embarrassment, since they seem to offend many of the justified norms of American society. Their refusal of patriotism offends primarily in wartime. In peace, it seems not much more bothersome than their reputed denial of birthday celebrations, even to little children. Far more serious is their fierce stand against blood transfusions, since in the name of sanctifying life, they so often pragmatically welcome death. Their primary rancor sets them against the state, the church, the marketplace, the university, and every other institution of our lives. If they did this in the name of some humanizing hope, some mitigation of the unkindness of our hearts, then we could see them as addled prophets, innocents of a literal reductionism. Alas, their critique of America is the weakest ever offered us. They would make us a nation of Jonadabs, of sanctified assassins, cutting down the priests of Baal, for whom we read Catholic priests, Protestant ministers, Jewish rabbis, and all sectarian teachers of spirituality. They are the good haters whom D.H. Lawrence feared, the lovers of apocalypse for its own sake. One more segment to go. I'll put in a link to the Watchtower's Paradise Purgatory, a development of what Bloom says here about Franz's theology of the millennium.